It's been a month since the mid-season finale, and good God, I'm still hoping that maybe the second half of the show could actually be better. Now, if only YouTube can at least make my previous episode review for this monetizable, because it still hasn't been cleared yet. Sheesh. Anyway, this is Mega Man NG, and we are back now with another Flash episode review. I don't know if people still watch these, but I'm still doing this because I like the show, for better or for worse, and I want to make sure I provide my honest feelings about it. Even though I don't know if it'll actually get that far, but who knows. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the episode, The Trial of the Flash, that came yesterday. I will also be providing a bit of a short thoughts on the premiere episode of Black Lightning. And to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. So anyway, let's get started. I'll provide a summary as well as some of the things that, well, I find to be okay with. Let's begin. Much time has passed, and now the trial of Barry Allen has begun. As things continue along, many of Barry's friends try to find a way to help clear his name, but to no avail. But as it goes on, a new meta shows up, causing major sickness to the people of Central City. The only problem is that this guy doesn't know it. How can things get any worse? Can Team Flash be able to stop this meta before Central City enters a state of nuclear fallout? Alright, I'm gonna be fair here. The first half of Season 4 so far has been rather questionable. I mean, I understand they wanted to try to make it as lighthearted as possible, because last season was just too dark, but I think they kind of slipped once or twice, and that led to some problems. So now we're entering the second half of the season, and things are actually doing better. For starters, I'm surprised that the writers are adapting the storyline of the Trial of the Flash. It's getting an adaptation in this here, but with some minor differences. The only difference is that, well, instead of having to deal with the Reverse Flash, Eobor Thawne, it's the Thinker, who's now in a new body, and I don't know how the Thinker was able to do it, but he was able to put Barry and his friends in a very precarious situation. I am really being a bit questionable on this because the Trial of the Flash storyline in the comics lasted 2 years. 2 years. It was a 2-year storyline that had a lot of twists and turns, and it had a pretty heartwarming ending. However, here, what I mean to say is, well, the Trial of the Flash covered most of the episode itself, and the ending really kind of made it depressing. It was a bit depressing. I will say that the segment with the trial was alright. There were some issues, though, I had a bit of a problem with. Anyway, the villain of the week is a guy who Cisco decides to name Fallout. Or rather, it was Harry. Unfortunately, he's one of the flaws that I found about the episode. He was forgettable. He was forgettable because he actually provided no actual incentive into the main plot. Although there was one thing that he did contribute is the fact that, well, at the end of the episode, the Flash was honored at an award by a meeting by one of the chiefs of the police department. So at least that was something. Although if I will give this episode credit, I feel that it does give the opportunity for characters such as Cisco, Harry, and Caitlin to shine. Cisco and Caitlin really did shine in the episode, and there was like one funny scene when Cisco and Harry tried to convince Caitlin to be Killer Frost, and they did so in the most hilarious way possible. I found it to be really funny, but at least it worked. At least it worked in some ways. However, there was also another scene that I feel that another character did get the chance to shine, and it was Ralph Dibny. Since, well, Ralph Dibny tried to convince Joe West not to plant evidence in the home of DeVoe just so they can get their wife implicated. And Ralph Dibny went on to deliver a really impressive speech, trying to convince Joe otherwise, but also showing him the consequences of his actions that would lead to trouble, lead to problems, lead to all sorts of stuff. It kind of convinced Joe to snap out of it, and personally, I like that. I honestly like that one moment, and it was just very good. And sure, I do give Ralph Dibny a bit of slack for most of the time, because sometimes his humor can be okay, and in other cases it's been unnecessary, but this is the first time I'm actually giving Ralph Dibny some props. I give him props because even though he's a private investigator, the guy has a code of honor. And it's something that I do appreciate in some characters, that at least they take the liberty of themselves to show others the errors of their ways. And speaking of the ending, yeah, despite their best efforts in dealing with the meta, the ending goes exactly as you expect. Barry Allen is found guilty and is sentenced to Iron Heights. Yeah, I don't really know how to make of this. I really can't. I really can't even fathom it. I didn't think they would actually do it. But the only thing I wonder about it is if what will happen next. Barry's now in Iron Heights. He's no longer a hero. He has to suffer for something the Thinker had done and manipulate it so that way he can be able to concoct his own plan. But what made it really more depressing is that Barry ended up in the same cell his father was in the first season of the show. And I like that it tied a bit of continuity, but it made my heart tug a few strings. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but still, I mean, it was just really sad. No, anyway, there are some flaws that I found in it. The first off is that Barry is a complete and utter dummy. His friends are doing everything in their power to help him, and the only thing Barry does is do absolutely nothing. Barry's like, he doesn't want anyone else to help, that this is his problem, not realizing that he's being played. Barry, you are reminding me of Peter Parker in so many ways. You may have all that great power, but you don't have the responsibility to do it. And sure, the Flash is one of the most well-known heroes in DC, but the character himself, Barry Allen, a complete and utter dunce. I know some people will disagree with me, but this is my take on it. And personally, Barry should just take any advantage. Although if this is for the purpose of trying to continue the story along, I'll be a bit cautious. And the other flaw that I found is that the villain of the week, like I mentioned, was Fallout, and he was forgettable. He really didn't contribute much to the overall plot. Though he did in some ways, since the Flash ended up getting an award. It ended up getting an award by the CCPD, so at least that's something. What's going to happen after this, I don't really know. It did had a bit of problems, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. My rating for this episode is a 7.5. It was a pretty good episode. There was some humor in times that were needed, but overall, the episode was alright and much better than the mid-season finale. Sadly, I gotta wait till like the end of the month to watch New Legends, and they're moving it to Monday because of one simple reason. Black Lightning. And before I explain my thoughts about this, I gotta finish things up. The episode was good. There was some action, but most of the episode's focus was on the trial itself, as well as the aftermath and how everybody else is doing what they can to help Barry. And Barry, being the character he is, decided to just not run. Since, Barry, you've ran way too many times. You are pretty much the reason why many of the things that have happened in the DC universe happened. Like Flashpoint, for instance. And I'm still disappointed that Flashpoint was limited to one episode. I feel personally the CW-verse needs a bit of a revamp. For some shows, because Arrow was a bit of a letdown after the Season 5 finale. Legends didn't hold up after the events of Season 2. And I don't know about Supergirl, but I do know that Supergirl is doing okay. I don't really know for sure. But what I will say is that these guys really need to fix it. Because if not, then I may just stop watching the show. Because I don't want to do that. I was already turned off in Arrow Season 4 due to the huge influx of Felicity, as well as the passing of one Laurel Lance. Although they did bring her Earth 2 counterpart, Black Siren, it still doesn't feel the same. I'll be honest, it still doesn't. Now, I'll be ending this video by providing a short little thoughts on the first episode of Black Lightning that came out yesterday. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Black Lightning a lot, and seeing that the protagonist of this is an honest, hardworking person who's trying to do what he can for his family, yet he harbors a dark side, that he was a vigilante. And it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was completely different from most of the other CW-verse shows. It was serious all throughout, and it dealt with some really tough issues. But yeah, I am looking forward to what the rest of the season has in store. Thankfully, it's set in its own continuity, so it doesn't need to interact or mess with like the rest of the CW-verse. Though I wouldn't mind if there was like one episode or so where the Flash comes by to help out, albeit temporarily. Because it is now slowly going to be part of the CW-verse, but it's set on a different Earth, similar to Supergirl. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode review. If you have not watched the first episode of Black Lightning, you should do that. It's like available online at the CW's website, so do that. That's about it for this episode review. It's good to be back doing these, and I look forward to hearing your feedback in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button. It really does mean a lot to me, and I will see you guys next time for more. This is Mega Man NJ signing off. Peace out. See you next week, because I really am curious to see how this story comes along.